How many FBI agents actively participated in the events of January 6th?
Sir, I can't answer that.
Did any FBI agents or FBI informants actively encourage and incite crimes of violence on January 6th?
Sir, I can't answer that.
Ms. Sadburn, who is Ray Epps?
I'm aware of the individual, sir. I don't have the specific background to him.
On January 6th, Mr. Epps is seen whispering to a person, and 5 seconds after he's whispering to a person, that same person begins to forcibly tear down the barricades. Shortly thereafter, the FBI put out a public post seeking information on individuals connected with violent crimes on January 6th. Among those individuals, in the bottom there, is Mr. Epps. The FBI publicly asked for information leading to the arrest. This was posted, and then, sometime later, magically, Mr. Epps disappeared from the public posting. It's my question to you, and this is not an ordinary law enforcement question. This is a question of public accountability. Did federal agent actively encourage violent and criminal conduct on January 6th?
Similar to the other answers, I cannot answer that.
How many
Oath Keepers founder is sentenced to 18 years. Ooh! For the January 6th seditious conspiracy case. That's what you get. Before the judge made the sentence, she told him, "You, sir, present an ongoing threat and a peril to this country and to the republic and to the very fabric of this democracy." His response was that he is a political prisoner and he believes that the only crime he committed was opposing those who are destroying our country. The judge responded, "You were not found guilty because of your beliefs, not because you supported the other guy, not because Joe Biden is president now, but because the facts of the case."
This is by far one of the largest miscarriages of justice that America has ever seen. January 6th defendant Ray Epps was just sentenced to only 12 months probation. The agent provocateur was caught on camera multiple times by multiple people on multiple days instructing people to go into the Capitol building. He was also caught bragging and texting his nephew saying, "I orchestrated it all." And he was the 16th person on the FBI's most wanted list, but was quickly taken off. Yeah, while people that weren't even there sit in prison for 22 years. Thank you to the Epic Times. I can't even read anymore. I'm so infuriated. If you guys want to pause this to read this, you're more than welcome to. They also gave him 100 hours of community service and ordered him to pay $500 in restitution when everybody else was fined thousands of dollars.
The military, the United States military, and this gets really convoluted once you get into the response on January 6th and how I was delayed getting resources. You have the United States military, Secretary of Defense or Acting Secretary of Defense Miller and General Milley had both discussed locking down the city of Washington, D.C. because they were so worried about violence at the Capitol on January 6th. On Sunday and Monday, they had been discussing locking down the city, revoking permits on Capitol Hill because of the concern for violence. You know who issues the permits on Capitol Hills for demonstrations? I do. You know who wasn't told? Me. Instead, on January 4th, what does Miller do? He puts out a memo restricting the National Guard from carrying the various weapons, any civil disobedience equipment that would be utilized for the very demonstrations or violence that he sees coming. It just doesn't make any sense.
Wait. So the military says we're so concerned about potential imminent violence that we are considering shutting down the city, but at the very same time they decide that the National Guard can't adopt an aggressive posture.
Right. They're deploying because they're going to be deploying National Guard to assist Washington, D.C. with crowd control at metros and some of the traffic control areas. But they put this out on January 4th, specific to January 5th and 6th. And this direction affected the National Guard in Virginia and Maryland. When I was calling begging for assistance on January 6th, they weren't allowed to respond at first. You look at Governor Hogan. He did a press conference saying he was begging to respond and he was being denied by the Pentagon, all because of the memo.
So why?
You know, you begin to wonder why, and especially when you look at things like something that I recently came across when you talk about the military. General Milley, you know, we're now finding out, and it's not from me. This is from Carol Leonnig, you know, investigative reporter with the Washington Post, has found that he was using data miner on his own, coming across intelligence.
Tell us what data miner is.
So data miner is an intelligence platform. It's not something your average citizen would have on their computer. I guess it goes in and does crawling across webs. I'm not really sure how it works.
Yes.
But it's not it's an intelligence platform. He's picking up intelligence talking about killing members of Congress and attacking the United States Capitol. And he's not telling me. He's telling select members of Congress. I mean, Carol Lenning writes about it in her book. That's concerning as hell, because as the chief of police, there's a duty to warn there, and I should be told so I can take the necessary action. I don't know who else he was telling, but he sure wasn't telling me.
Again, what could possibly be the explanation for that?
I'm not really sure. I've done many national special security events, and this was handled differently.
What about the January 6th tapes? Kevin promised he was going to release those. I'm still waiting.
Well, the January 6th tapes are available to anybody who wants to see them. He gave them and allowed Tucker Carlson and his team to see them. Congressman, it is true.
No, Maria, they are not available to anyone who wants to see them. That is a factual misstatement. They have been curated for some people in the media and some defense attorneys, but any American cannot see any of the January 6th tapes. That is a false statement. What about the January 6th?
I just can't believe I live in a country where people increasingly think that January the 6th wasn't that big a deal. It's just almost impossible to think that. It just scares the shit out of me. You saw it right in front of us. I'll never forget the day. I mean, yes, they were beating the crap out of people. I mean, if they would have got Mike Pence, they might have fucking hung him. That mob, that mob was literally crazy. And I just...
At 6'4" in his desert camouflage, bright red Trump hat, and military-style backpack, Ray Epps stood out from the crowd on January 6th. That's him running toward the U.S. Capitol alongside the vanguard of rioters who first attacked and overran police.
What do you think when you see this now?
It brings back some bad memories. It's hard to see our Capitol under attack.
It's been more than 2 years since the storming of the Capitol, but Ray and his wife Robin told us they relive January 6th every day of their lives.
Some people have said, well, just let it go and let it die down.
It doesn't.
What they don't understand is it doesn't.
What exactly was the role of Ray Epps in the chaos of January 6th?
The theory, Epps, a former member of the Oath Keepers, was an FBI informant who incited the crowd on January 6th, bubbled up from a right-wing news site called Revolver News, run by a former Trump speechwriter.
He's the smoking gun of the entire Fedsurrection.
And landed on Fox News primetime. At 6'4",
has just sentenced members of the far-right group, the Proud Boys, after their conviction on seditious conspiracy charges related to the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. NBC News Justice reporter Ryan Riley is outside the D.C. courthouse with more on this. Talk to us, Ryan. What are you hearing?
So Dominic Pizzola, who's the individual who used a stolen police shield to break that first window at the Capitol on January 6th, has now been sentenced to 10 years in federal prison, with Judge Timothy Kelly saying that he opened up the Capitol like with a can opener on January 6th and let the crowd sort of flood inside, and was a key part of that initial breach. Kelly's partner spoke during the sentencing hearing, as did Dominic Pizzola himself. Pizzola's partner said that he was getting drunk and watching Fox News in the lead up to January 6th, and also called him, quote, an effing idiot for his conduct, and basically was asking for leniency from the judge, along with a daughter who spoke there, saying that, her dad had always been there for her. But this is one of the higher sentences that we've seen from the January.
Next tonight, a former leader of the far-right extremist group, the Proud Boys, sentenced to 17 years in prison for his actions on January 6th. Joseph Biggs, a military veteran, tearful today, pleading for leniency before receiving one of the longest sentences so far. Here's ABC's Martha Raddatz.
Tonight, despite tearful pleas in court, former Proud Boys Lieutenant Joseph Biggs now sentenced to 17 years for what the judge called his role in a national disgrace, the second longest sentence imposed in the more than 1,100 criminal cases resulting from the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. Biggs, an Army veteran, was convicted of seditious conspiracy for plotting the riot with other leaders of the far-right group.
So we just stormed the Capitol.
This video of Biggs on January 6 was shown during his trial, as well as this selfie from inside the Senate chamber. Prosecutors said Biggs had been an influential proponent of the group's shift towards political violence after Donald Trump lost the election. Ultimately, prosecutors argued he was party to the first breach of the Capitol's perimeter and even after the attack declared it a warning shot to the government. The judge saying what happened on January 6th broke our tradition of peacefully transferring power, which is among the most precious things we had as Americans.
When the committee wasn't accusing Republican office holders of planning riots on January 6th, it was accusing them of running away from those riots like cowards. In the case of Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri, the committee and their allies accused him of both.
Josh Hawley is a
To prove that Josh Hawley was a coward, the committee released video of him loping out of the building on the afternoon of January 6th with a police escort. The tape became a staple on social media. Democrats laughed with derision.
Later that day, Senator Hawley fled after those protesters he helped to rile up stormed the Capitol. See for yourself.
But in fact, the surveillance footage we reviewed shows that famous clip was a sham, edited deceptively by the January 6th committee. The clip was propaganda, not evidence. The actual videotape shows that Hawley was one of many lawmakers being ushered out of the building by Capitol Hill police officers. And in fact, Hawley was at the back of the pack. The coward tape was a lie, one of many.
This is yet another wonderful Fox News talking point that is not actually legally defined, and you keep saying, what's the legal definition? You're not a lawyer, I can tell. Trump's behavior on January the 6th does not exist in a bubble. You can look at his months of behavior before that. Donald Trump's team had false slates of electors they tried to line up to pretend there were different electors than there really were. He asked Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger to manufacture 11,000 plus votes that didn't exist. He asked him to commit voter fraud. Donald Trump accused two major election machine companies of colluding with the Chinese government and I believe like the Venezuelan government. Every single swing state was challenged in court and he lost. Remember, in order to incite violence, you don't just look at that day, you look at all the actions leading up to it to say, what was the goal of inciting that violence?
I think we should talk to this gentleman
Yes,
here.
sir.
Yes, I'm 65 years old, and I was born in 1930. And,
At the January 6th attack on the Capitol, she smashed a window with an ice pick. Now, she'll spend 5 years in prison. I'll explain. Rachel Powell.
If it wasn't for your vote, we would not have Joe Biden in the White House.
It's an issue that continues to be misunderstood. I know by God's grace.
The next president of 2024 has just been announced.
Want to talk a little?
Why are you letting this happen? Why haven't you called for backup? Where is your backup? This is our damn Capitol building, and y'all are letting it get destroyed on your watch. Fuck all of you. Call for backup. Get some help down here. And if they don't want to give you fucking backup, they obviously don't give a shit about you. These people want blood. Why are you letting this happen?
Ms. Moss, how was this experience of being targeted by the former president?
These are the pictures you've seen of January 6th. They're familiar because they've been playing on a loop on every media outlet in America for the last 2 years. There's a reason for that. But it turns out there's quite a bit of video you haven't seen. And that video tells a very different story about what happened on January 6th. More than 40,000 hours of surveillance footage from in and around the Capitol have been withheld from the public. And once you see the video, you'll understand why. Taken as a whole, the video record does not support the claim that January 6th was an insurrection. In fact, it demolishes that claim. And that's exactly why the Democratic Party and its allies in the media prevented you from seeing it. By controlling the images you were allowed to view from January 6th, they controlled how the public understood that day. They could lie about what happened, and you would never know the difference. Those lies had a purpose. They created a pretext for a federal crackdown on opponents of the Uniparty in Washington.
Our office wanted to ensure that there was shock and awe, that we could charge as many people as possible.
The first thing you notice from viewing the full video record of January 6th is just how many people entered the Capitol building that day. Hundreds and hundreds of people, possibly thousands, over the course of about 2 hours. The crowd was enormous. A small percentage of them were hooligans. They committed vandalism. You've seen their pictures again and again. But the overwhelming majority weren't. They were peaceful. They were orderly and meek. These were not insurrectionists. They were sightseers. Footage from inside the Capitol overturns the story you've heard about January 6th. Protesters queue up in neat little lines. They give each other tours outside the Speaker's office. They take cheerful selfies and they smile. They're not destroying the Capitol. They obviously revere the Capitol. They're there because they believe the election was stolen from them. They believe in the system. Here's the man you've heard referred to as the QAnon shaman outside the Senate chamber. These are not rioters. These are people who wandered over from a political rally.
We will not let them silence your voices.
After the rally, they walked down Pennsylvania Avenue, where organizers had secured a federal permit to hold a legal rally on the grounds of the Capitol.
I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard.
Once at the Capitol building, things began to get chaotic. Capitol police officers fired tear gas into the crowd. A few at the front of the herd broke windows. Someone opened the doors, and many hundreds of others just walked in.
They're going to make that the story.
Of course, they did make it the story. And at the center of it, the single most famous person arrested that day was a Navy veteran from Arizona called Jacob Chansley, often referred to as the QAnon shaman.
The so-called QAnon shaman. QAnon shaman.
Someone named Q Shaman.
Jacob Chansley became the face of January 6th, a dangerous conspiracy theorist dressed in outlandish costume who led the violent insurrection to overthrow American democracy. For these crimes, Chansley was sentenced to nearly 4 years in prison, far more time than many violent criminals now receive. What did Jacob Chansley do to receive this punishment? To this day, there is dispute over how Chansley got into the Capitol building. But according to our review of the internal surveillance video, it is very clear what happened once he got inside. Virtually every moment of his time inside the Capitol was caught on tape. The tapes show that Capitol Police never stopped Jacob Chansley. They helped him. They acted as his tour guides. Here's video of Chansley in the Senate chamber. Capitol Police officers take him to multiple entrances and even try to open locked doors for him. We counted at least 9 officers who were within touching distance of unarmed Jacob Chansley. Not one of them even tried to slow him down. Chansley understood that Capitol Police were his allies. Video shows him giving thanks for them in a prayer on the floor of the Senate. Watch.
Thank you, Heavenly Father, for giving the inspiration needed to these police officers to allow us in this building.
Contrast the reality of what Jacob Chansley did in the Capitol building on January 6th, the indisputable facts recorded on video, some of which has never before been seen, with the depiction of Jacob Chansley that you've seen in the media for more than 2 years. He's a terrorist, they said. He should be killed.
Shoot him. Yeah. Shoot him. Like, you burst into the United States, if he was dressed like bin Laden, would you have shot him?
Shoot him. Shoot him. It makes you wonder, who are the violent extremists here? Not Jacob Chansley. And the video proves that. But you would never have known from the media.
To some extent, the health and safety of our democracy may depend on it. That is setting the record straight. Again and again, when presented with the lie that January 6th was anything other than a barbaric assault on our Capitol and on the peaceful transfer of power. So when Donald Trump seeks to cast the rioters he incited that day as peaceful and patriotic and deserving of full pardons for the good of our democracy, that cannot stand. And so as defendants grow increasingly emboldened, judges overseeing more than 1,200 such cases in Washington federal court are starting to push back. From a recent ruling by a Republican-appointed judge, quote, "The court is accustomed to defendants who refuse to accept that they did anything wrong. But in my 37 years on the bench, I cannot recall a time when such meritless justifications of criminal activity have gone mainstream. I've been dismayed to see distortions and outright falsehoods seep into the public consciousness.
All of the footage from January 6th has finally been released, and this new video shows Capitol Police clearing a pathway so people can walk through the halls of the House wing. And if you thought they were clearing a path so people could exit the building, well, that's just not the case. As you'll see in a moment, a large crowd enters the halls of the House wing, Capitol Police standing idle. They go through, and then a large portion of them turns around and goes back the other way. Capitol Police did absolutely nothing in this portion of the video to deter them. All the footage was released after House Speaker Mike Johnson kept his promise to the American people. In a statement on his official X page, formerly known as Twitter, Speaker Johnson stated the following: "Today, I am..."
You saw the assault on the Capitol on January 6th.
Yeah, it made me sick. Do you think January 6th was a big deal?
I do.
This is Joseph Padilla, and he was just sentenced to one of the harshest penalties for any Tennessean who traveled to storm our nation's capital on January 6, 2021. Padilla got 6.5 years in prison, but prosecutors actually recommended 14 years. Now, it wasn't just because of the shoving match that happened, but because of what Padilla did before, during, and after this riot. Prosecutors found these social media posts from Padilla where, just before the riot, he wrote, quote, "My final line is Biden holding his hand up at his inauguration. After that, it's the cartridge box for me." Cartridge as in bullets. Padilla posted several times on far right-wing sites saying a lot of the same, but then tried to downplay his involvement at trial. At one point, he said the only reason he threw a flagpole at Capitol Police was so that he could distract protesters long enough so police could help one of their own. Prosecutors didn't buy it.
Defending a machine that doesn't even care about you, man. But if you let us in there, that machine will be gone.
But even after all that, Judge John Bates sentenced Padilla to less than half of what was recommended by prosecutors. He acknowledged Padilla's military service and some of the hardships he's already gone through with his family through all of this, but Judge Bates still made it clear that what he saw from Padilla made him one of the most aggressive rioters on that day. As always, we want to know, what do you think?
Anyone who endorses violence, hatred, or oppression is not welcome in our country and never ever will be.
A few moments later.
Let's have trial by combat. Oh, the land of the free. Now it is up to Congress to confront this egregious assault on our democracy. And after this, we're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you. We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women.
We'll pause.
Protesters are in the building.
Thank you.
There wasn't anything you said.
They're gonna stop us!
Some never before released footage. Their cause was That's right. He found a magazine with ammunition, and it didn't belong to the Capitol Police officers. So y'all can miss me with this wasn't a terrorist attack. Y'all can miss me with they were just peaceful protesters. Y'all can miss me with their being unlawfully persecuted. They're domestic terrorists, and I hope they all rot in prison.
If you wanted to understand what happened on January 6, 2021 at the U.S. Capitol, one of the first people you'd talk to, maybe the first, would...
Pence is going to have to come through for us, and if he doesn't, that will be a sad day for our country.
They're marching up. You can see them marching up.
Our country has had enough. We will not take it anymore, and that's what this is all about.
Secret Service said they have dissuaded him from coming to Capitol Hill. They told him they don't have the resources to protect him here. So at the moment, he is not coming, but that could change.
Oh, he comes, I'm going to punch him out. This is
Oh,
my
wow,
moment.
I would pay to see
I've
that.
been waiting for this, for trespassing on the Capitol grounds. I'm going to punch him out, and I'm going to go to jail, and I'm going to be happy.
Look at the protesters outside the Capitol. You remember when you were a boy and all the protesters came to protest the Affordable Care Act?
Yeah.
Okay, go get him, Mimi. Those are the boxes. Electoral votes.
Oh my God, how did that guy get up there?
Is the speaker balcony open?
What if they try and run the Capitol?
Mr. Vice President, I, Paul Gosar from Arizona.
For what
Sports
purpose does the gentleman from Arizona rise?
I rise up for myself and 60 of my colleagues to object to the counting of the electoral ballots from Arizona.
Is the objection in writing and signed by a senator?
Yes, it is.
The two houses will withdraw from joint session. Each house will deliberate separately on the pending objection and report its decision back.
Her, that person. And then I just saw this picture. Oh, they're friends. If you know, you know. This guy, he's everywhere. Everywhere. Just did a post about
for or called a conspiracy nut for saying that the FBI was actively involved on January 6th, you have now been vindicated. You have now been vindicated. So if you've got a family member who's like, oh, Janice, you're just one of those conspiracy nuts, show them tonight's episode and show them this testimony that we're about to show you. Whistleblowers admitting that FBI Director Christopher Wray lied under oath to Congress that no FBI agents were present during the January 6th riots.
These are the pictures you've seen of.
On that video, that was your answer to a question to me 2 years ago. When I said how many agents or assets of the government were present on January 5th and January 6th and agitating in the crowd to go into the Capitol and how many went into the Capitol. Can you answer that now?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Oh, last time, you don't know how many there were or there were none?
I don't know the answer to either of those questions. If there were any, I don't know how many. I don't know whether there are any.
I think you may have just perjured yourself that you don't know that there were any. You want to say that again, that you don't know that there were any?
I have no personal knowledge of this matter. I think what I said the last time.
You've had 2 years to find out. And the day, by the way, that was in reference to Ray Epps, and yesterday you indicted him. Isn't that a wonderful coincidence? On a misdemeanor. Meanwhile, you're sending grandmas to prison. You're putting people away for 20 years for merely filming. Some people weren't even there yet. You got the guy on video who's saying go into the Capitol. He's directing people to the Capitol before the speech ends. He's at the site of the first breach. You've got all the goods on him, 10 videos, and it's an indictment for a misdemeanor. The American public isn't buying it.
Kentucky Congressman Thomas Massie was absolutely excellent today at the House Judiciary Committee's hearing with Attorney General Merrick Garland. He not only exposed Garland for giving the same answer 2 years in a row, which is the definition of slow walking, which, by the way, Congressman Jim Jordan also hit Garland on when it came to what the whistleblowers were saying about the Hunter Biden investigations, but Massie also nuked his response. Take a listen.
So I'm not going to violate this norm of the rule of law. I'm not going to comment on an investigation that's ongoing.
Alan, we just astonishingly heard a Democrat on this committee question your allegiance to the United States. How many tours in Iraq did you do?
I did 2 tours in Iraq, sir.
And for how many decades have you held a security clearance?
For 2 decades, sir.
Ever been called into question before?
No, sir.
And you also...
Tomorrow, we need to go into the Capitol. Into the Capitol. What? No! Peacefully. Fed. Tomorrow? I don't even like to say it because I'll be arrested. Well, let's not say it. We need to go... I'll say it. All right. We need to go in...
Shut the fuck up, Boomer.
...to the Capitol. Base Fed posting? All right. We need to go into the Capitol. I didn't see that coming. Okay.
Monument Hill.
Stop speaking. We are going to the Capitol where our problems are. It's that direction. Please spread the word. All right. Okay, but one more thing.
Yeah, so can we go up there? No?
When we go in.
Are we going to get arrested if we go up there?
Yeah. You don't need to get
Did
shot.
you arrest us all?
Tomorrow, we need...
The FBI was not only involved in the actions on January 6th from within. They had, I suspect, over 200 agents embedded within the crowd, including agents, or as they would call human assets, inside the Capitol, dressed as Trump supporters, before the doors were opened.
The problem with Representative Higgins...
From my perspective, sir, the FBI was not only involved in the actions on January 6th from within. They had, I suspect, over 200 agents embedded within the crowd, including agents, or as they would call human assets, inside the Capitol, dressed as Trump supporters, before the doors were opened. Beyond that, the FBI had embedded themselves and infiltrated online chat groups and websites and social media accounts across the country with any group that was discussing objections to COVID oppression. And the FBI, effectively infiltrated those groups. And when you track the text threads and the communications within those groups and find the origins of suggestions of potential violence or an active occupation of the Capitol on January 6th, you'll find that those messages were led by members of the groups that ended up to be the FBI agents that had infiltrated the group. So the FBI's involvement was deep, not just on J6, but on the days and weeks and months prior.
Mr. Allen, we just astonishingly heard a Democrat on this committee question your allegiance to the United States. How many tours in Iraq did you do?
I did 2 tours in Iraq, sir.
And for how many decades have you held a security clearance?
For 2 decades, sir.
Ever been called into question before?
No, sir.
And you also received the Employee of the Year Award for the Charlotte Field Office, is that right?
That is correct, sir.
Did you receive any medals during your service for the Marine Corps and the United States Navy?
I did, sir. As a member of the Marine Corps, I received a Navy Commendation Medal and a Navy Achievement Medal.
Seems to me your allegiance to the United States is pretty well established over multiple decades, wearing the uniform, fighting for our country, and I am proud that you continue to fight for our country as a whistleblower here, making a disclosure to the United States Congress. And Mr. Allen, is it your belief that you were retaliated against because you shared an email that questioned the truthfulness of FBI Director Christopher Wray?
Yes, sir.
And you believed that he wasn't truthful based on testimony he'd given to the United States Senate, isn't that right?
Yes, sir.
And in that testimony to the Senate, you believed that Christopher Wray indicated that there were no confidential informants and no FBI assets that were present at the Capitol on January 6th that were part of the violent riot. Isn't that right?
Yes, sir.
Please play the video. We're now going to hear from George Hill, who worked at the Boston field office.
The SSA in Boston said they were going to a political rally, which is First Amendment protected activity. No, we're not uploading. We're not starting cases on these people. To which they said, well, we're going to call your SAC. And the SSA said, go right ahead. Because when you're pushing back, you want to make sure that.
Mr. Allen, we just astonishingly heard a Democrat on the...
In the next few weeks, when Proud Boys leader Enrique Tarrio is transferred to the Federal Bureau of Prisons, he'll be given a projected release date. And when we see that date, it's likely to be the first in any of the 1,100 January 6 cases to carry a projected prison release date in the 2040s.
Yeah, just for awareness, be advised, there's probably about 300 Proud Boys. They're marching eastbound in this 400 block of kind of Independence, actually on the mall towards the United States Capitol.
I am not allowed to say what's going to happen today because everyone's just going to have to watch for themselves. But it's going to happen. Something's going to happen.
Who's free? Our streets! Who's free? Our streets! Who's free? Our streets! We are on your side. Don't make us go against you. Just pick a side. Pick a side. These are our streets.
$20 a picture. I hope Mike is going to do the right thing. I hope so. I hope so. Because if Mike Pence does the right thing, we win the election. All Vice President Pence has to do is send it back to the states to recertify. And we become president, and you are the happiest people. Mike Pence is going to have to come through for us. And if he doesn't, that will be a sad day for our country. Because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength, and you have to be strong.
Cruiser 50, it does look like we're going to have an ad hoc march stepping off here. There's a crowd surge heading east.
We love Trump! 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 We love Trump!
Mike Pence, I hope you're going to stand up for the good of our Constitution and for the good of our country. And if you're not, I'm going to be very disappointed in you. I will tell you right now.
We just had protest. Peace circle, breach the line. We need backup.
Madam Speaker, the Vice President and the United States Senate.
outriders here. We're going to give riot warnings. We're going to try and get compliance, but this is now effectively a riot.
49 hours declaring it a riot.
Cruiser 5 to 50, be advised, Capitol Police 1 advised they're trying to breach and get to the Capitol.
50, I copy. Hold the line! 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 Start the line! 42. We're about 5 miles out. We're trying to make our way through all this.
I recently found out, I didn't know until January 6th happened. That shit caught me off guard because I'm from Washington, D.C. That's where I grew up. And so on January 6th, I got a phone call from one of my best friends. Caught me off guard. He's like, hey, yo, son, you heard about the Proud Boys? They about to pull up to D.C., our city. I was like, yo, is that like a new musical or something? He's like, nah, bro, they're white nationalists. They all right, do your Googles. I was like, all right. Yeah. So I did my Googles. Turns out they are fucked up. They are white nationalists. They are alt-right. Then I did further research. I found out that the leader of the Proud Boys is an Afro-Cuban Latino. Yeah, real shit. His name is Enrique Terrio. That shit fucked me up. As a Latino, that shit fucked me up, son. I'm like, damn, son, like Latinos, we really out here taking white people's jobs, son. Like, son, we gotta do everything. We gotta show you how to be racist, too. Give me the handcuffs, I arrest myself. I recently